My name is Margaret Wilson. I'm 68 years old, speaking from a small town in Georgia, USA. Before I even start, I want you to subscribe, like this video, and click the notification button for more upcoming interesting stories. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching right now? Drop it in the comments before I go on, because what I'm about to tell you will shake your soul. I remember the night like it just happened. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, my heart still aching from the loss of my little boy just a month before. My eyes were swollen from crying. I was still wearing the same black dress from the funeral, because somehow I thought not taking it off would keep him closer to me. My husband, Daniel, came in smelling of alcohol. His face was hard, his words sharp, and before I knew it, he pushed me back and forced himself on me. I screamed, I cried, but his grip was stronger than my will. Weeks later, I found out I was pregnant again. My hand shook as I held the test in the bathroom. My son was gone. And now I was carrying another child. Not out of love, but out of pain and abuse. That night, I sat alone in the dark kitchen, staring at the moon through the window. I thought to myself, how did I get here? How did my life fall apart this way? And then, I heard the creak of the back door opening, and the sound of heavy footsteps behind me. It wasn't the first time I had heard that sound, but this time it would change everything. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to take you back to the very beginning so you can understand how my life turned into this nightmare. I was born in the summer of 1957, in a small farming town in North Carolina. Life back then was simple. Neighbors waved at each other, children played barefoot in the grass, and you could leave your door unlocked without fear. I was the youngest of 4 children, and my mama always said I had a smile that could light up a room. My father worked in the cotton fields, while my mother sewed dresses for the ladies in town. I met Daniel when I was just 19. He was tall, charming, and had a way of looking at me that made me feel like I was the only girl in the world. My friends warned me that he was trouble. He had a short temper and a drinking problem even back then. But I was young and foolish, and I thought my love could change him. The first few years of our marriage weren't so bad. We had our first child, Benjamin, and for a short while I thought maybe we could be happy. Daniel got a job at the lumber mill, and I stayed home to raise our boy. I remember Benjamin's laughter filling the house, his little feet running across the wooden floors, his eyes wide with curiosity. But slowly, Daniel's temper began to show again. Small arguments turned into shouting matches. He started drinking more, coming home late, and sometimes he would shove me out of his way when he was angry. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that all marriages had their problems. But deep down I was afraid. Then came the day that shattered my world. Benjamin was only 7 when he fell sick. At first, we thought it was just the flu, but within days, his condition worsened. I begged Daniel to take him to the hospital. But Daniel said we couldn't afford the bills, and that the boy just needed rest. By the time I got the courage to take Benjamin myself, it was too late. I held him in my arms as his small chest stopped rising. My baby, my only child, was gone. For weeks I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house like a ghost, clutching Benjamin's favorite toy, a little wooden train, to my chest. Daniel barely spoke to me, except to tell me to get over it. And then one night, his grief turned into rage. And his rage turned into something even darker. That was the night he forced me. The night my body stopped being mine. And now, here I was weeks later, carrying another child. Not because I wanted to, but because my husband's abuse had left me no choice. I was trapped, and I didn't know if I would survive. One rainy evening, as I sat at the kitchen table trying to gather my strength, I heard a loud crash in the living room. I ran in, only to see Daniel standing over someone. My heart froze when I realized who it was. Daniel was standing over a man who lay sprawled on the floor, blood trickling from the side of his face. For a moment, my mind refused to believe what I was seeing. Then my stomach dropped. It was our neighbor, Mr. Collins, a kind, soft-spoken widower who sometimes brought me vegetables from his garden. "What did you do?" I screamed, rushing forward. Daniel turned to me, his eyes blazing with drunken rage. "Stay out of this, Margaret," he barked, shoving me backward so hard I hit the wall. I scrambled to my knees, my heart pounding. "Mr. Collins groaned, trying to sit up. I just came to check on you," he wheezed, clutching his ribs. I heard shouting. Daniel's voice was low and dangerous. You don't come into my house without knocking. You don't talk to my wife unless I say so. I could see it in his face, that wild look he got when he was seconds away from doing something he couldn't take back. My hands shook as I stepped between them. Daniel, please just let him go. For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the rain hammering against the roof. Then, with a growl, Daniel grabbed Mr. Collins by the collar and dragged him toward the door. He flung it open and tossed him outside like a sack of garbage, slamming it shut behind him. I stood there, breathless, my body trembling. Daniel turned to me, his expression shifting from fury to cold detachment. You'd better not be talking to other men behind my back, he said flatly. Or next time, it won't be him I throw out. That night, I barely slept. Every sound, every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind made me jump. I kept thinking about Mr. Collins lying out there in the rain. I wanted to go check on him, but I knew Daniel was still awake in the living room, nursing his bottle of whiskey. The next morning, I quietly slipped out of bed and went to Mr. Collins's house. His front door was unlocked. I found him sitting at his kitchen table, a rag pressed to his swollen cheek. I'm so sorry, I whispered, tears in my eyes. He gave a small pained smile. Don't apologize for him, Margaret. You don't deserve what he's doing to you. Those words stayed with me all day. You don't deserve this. I hadn't heard anything like that in years. For the next few weeks, Daniel's temper simmered just below the surface. He didn't hit me, but he made sure I knew who was in control, locking me in the house when he went to work, checking my phone calls, even counting the groceries when I came back from the store. Then one afternoon I felt a sharp pain in my stomach. I froze, my hands instinctively going to my belly. I was barely 3 months pregnant. The pain came again, stronger this time. Fear gripped me. Was I losing this baby? I tried to call Daniel, but there was no answer. My neighbor's warning rang in my ears. You don't deserve this. I grabbed my coat and headed toward the clinic on foot, the pain making it hard to breathe. Halfway there, I heard a truck rumble up behind me. I turned, and my heart nearly stopped. It was Daniel's truck. He slammed the brakes and jumped out, his face a mask of fury. Where the hell do you think you're going? He roared, grabbing my arm. I'm in pain, I stammered. I need to see a doctor. You're not going anywhere without me. He snapped, shoving me toward the truck. I begged him to take me to the clinic, but instead he drove straight home, locked the doors, and stood in front of me like a guard. The pain in my stomach grew worse, my vision blurring. I thought I was going to collapse. Then, just as I felt myself slipping, there was a pounding on the front door, loud, urgent, relentless. Daniel froze. The pounding came again, followed by a voice shouting his name. And when Daniel opened the door, the person standing there made my blood run cold. When Daniel flung the door open, the rain blew in, splattering the floorboards. Standing there was Sheriff Dawson, the same man who had known my family since I was a child. His hat dripped with water, but his eyes were sharp, scanning Daniel's face before flicking over to me. Evenin', Daniel, the sheriff said, his voice steady. We got a call from a concerned neighbor. Said they heard screaming. My heart thudded. I knew instantly who had called Mr. Collins. Daniel gave a slow, forced smile. We're fine here, Sheriff. My wife's just not feeling well. Sheriff Dawson's gaze lingered on me. Margaret? That true? I opened my mouth to speak, but Daniel's hand clamped down on my shoulder like a vice. I could feel his fingers digging into my skin, a silent warning. My throat tightened. I'm okay, he whispered. The sheriff didn't look convinced. He stepped closer, his boots creaking on the porch. Mind if I come in? Daniel's smile faltered, but he stepped aside. The sheriff's eyes moved around the room, taking in the locked windows, the empty bottles on the table, and the fact that I was clutching my stomach in pain. You don't look okay, Margaret, he said gently. You need medical attention? I hesitated, feeling Daniel's eyes burning into me, but another cramp shot through my abdomen, so sharp it nearly knocked me off my feet. I gasped, and that was all it took. The sheriff stepped forward, catching my arm. That's it. I'm taking you to the clinic. Daniel moved between us. She's my wife. She's not going anywhere. The sheriff's voice dropped into something cold and final. Daniel, step aside. For a moment, I thought Daniel would swing at him. His fists clenched, his jaw worked, and his chest rose and fell like a man ready for a fight. But then slowly he stepped back, muttering under his breath. Sheriff Dawson helped me into his patrol car. As we drove away, I stared out the window, my heart pounding, my hands still shaking. I knew Daniel would be furious. But for the first time in a long while, I felt a small flicker of safety. At the clinic, the doctor ran tests and assured me the baby was still alive. I felt a strange mixture of relief and dread. Relief that I wasn't losing another child. Dread because I knew exactly whose child it was, and what that meant for my future. Sheriff Dawson waited outside the exam room. "Margaret," he said quietly, "you know you can get out. We can help you." I shook my head. "You don't understand. Daniel will find me. He always finds me." The sheriff studied me for a long time, then nodded like he understood more than I'd said. "If you ever change your mind, you know where to find me." When I got home that night, the house was dark. No lights. No sound. My stomach knotted with unease. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The air felt heavy, charged. Then I saw it, a single candle burning on the kitchen table. And beside it, a folded piece of paper with my name scrawled across it. I reached for it with trembling hands. But before I could open it, a voice came from the shadows. "I told you never to talk to him." Daniel stepped forward, and in his hand, he was holding something I'd never seen him with before, a shotgun. The flicker of the candlelight danced across Daniel's face, casting shadows that made him look like a stranger. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw tight, and the shotgun rested casually in his hands, as if it had always belonged there. "Daniel," I whispered, my throat dry, "put that down." He didn't move. "You think you can run to the sheriff? You think you can make me look weak in front of this town?" His voice was low, but every word carried the weight of barely restrained fury. "I wasn't." "Don't lie to me," he snapped, slamming the shotgun down on the table so hard the candle wobbled. "I saw you get in his car. I saw the way he looked at you." My heart was racing so fast I could barely breathe. "I was in pain, Daniel. The baby." His hand shot out and grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. "That's my baby," he growled. "And don't you forget it." He released me with a shove, pacing the kitchen like a caged animal. Every step he took made the floor creak under his boots. "You belong here, Margaret. You belong to me. If I have to remind you every day, I will." I glanced at the folded paper on the table. His back was turned, and curiosity burned through my fear. I snatched it up and unfolded it quickly. The handwriting wasn't his. My breath caught. It was from Mr. Collins. "If you need a way out, I can help you. Don't wait too long." I barely had time to shove the paper into my pocket before Daniel turned back around, his eyes narrowing. "What was that?" "Nothing," I said quickly, my voice trembling. He stepped closer, his shadow stretching over me. "If I ever catch you talking to him again." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The weight of the shotgun in his hand said it all. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My mind was racing. The letter in my pocket felt like a secret flame. Dangerous, but maybe my only light in this darkness. Over the next few days, Daniel seemed calmer, almost too calm. It was the kind of quiet that made my skin crawl. I tried to go about my day as if nothing had happened, but my thoughts kept drifting to Mr. Collins's note. Was it worth the risk to reach out to him? Could I really escape? Then one afternoon while Daniel was at work, I heard a soft knock at the back door. My heart leapt into my throat. I opened it just a crack, and there was Mr. Collins, standing in the shadows with a battered old suitcase at his feet. "I don't have much time," he said urgently. "If you want to leave, it has to be now." For a split second, my whole body screamed yes. But then I looked down at my stomach, felt the faintest flutter of movement inside me. The baby. My baby. Could I run with the child growing inside me? I hesitated. I don't know. Mr. Collins's eyes darted to the driveway. "Margaret, please. You might not get another chance." That's when I heard it. The unmistakable rumble of Daniel's truck turning onto the road. Mr. Collins's face went pale. "He's early." Panic surged through me. I turned to grab the suitcase, but before I could, the sound of the truck door slamming shut echoed through the yard. And then Daniel's heavy footsteps started up the porch stairs. The footsteps pounded on the porch, each one louder than the last. My hands tightened around the suitcase handle, my pulse roaring in my ears. Mr. Collins's eyes darted to the back fence like he was already calculating his escape.
Go, Ifist.
Go now. He hesitated for half a second, but then the screen door at the front of the house creaked open, and Daniel's voice boomed from the hallway. Margaret? Where are you? I pushed the suitcase toward Mr. Collins and gave him a shove toward the backyard. Hurry! The back door clicked shut just as Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway, his eyes sweeping the room. His gaze landed on me, standing too close to the door, my breath still heavy, and I saw the suspicion flare in his face. What are you doing back here? He asked slowly. I was just getting some air, I stammered, trying to keep my voice steady. His eyes narrowed. He took a step toward me, sniffing the air like he could smell the truth. Who was here? No one, I said quickly. I've been alone all day. That was when we both heard it, the faint sound of the back gate swinging shut. Daniel's head snapped toward the window. Before I could react, he stormed across the kitchen and yanked open the back door. I ran after him, but by the time I got outside, he was already halfway across the yard, chasing the figure slipping through the gate. Collins! Daniel roared, his voice carrying over the fence line. I froze on the porch, my heart in my throat. Mr. Collins didn't look back. He just kept running, disappearing into the trees behind his house. Daniel stood at the fence, breathing hard, his fists clenched. When he turned back toward me, his face was a mask of pure rage. So you have been talking to him? He said in a low, dangerous voice. Shut your mouth, he snapped, stalking toward me. His boots crunched on the gravel, each step making me want to shrink back into the house. The moment we stepped inside, he grabbed my arm so hard I gasped. You think you can embarrass me in front of this whole town? You think you can make me look like a fool? Daniel, please, I whispered. It's not what you think. He yanked me closer, his breath hot with the smell of whiskey.
No, Margaret.
It's exactly what I think. Then without warning, he shoved me so hard I stumbled backward into the kitchen counter. Pain shot up my side, making me cry out. You want to run? Try it, he growled. See where it gets you. I bit back tears, clutching my stomach. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me break. Later that night, long after he'd passed out in his chair, I sat in the dark living room, my hands shaking. My thoughts were spinning in a way they never had before. Running wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the life inside me. And I knew then, if I didn't leave soon, neither of us would make it. But I also knew that escaping Daniel would mean doing something I had never imagined myself capable of. And that something would change everything. I sat in the dark, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. My mind replayed the same thought over and over. If I don't get out, I'll die here. But Daniel was like a shadow that clung to me. Always watching, always one step behind. I knew running straight out the door wouldn't work. He'd find me before I got halfway down the road. If I was going to leave, I'd need to plan it carefully and quietly. The next morning, I acted as though nothing had changed. I made breakfast, kept my eyes down, and answered Daniel's questions in short, calm sentences. But in my mind, I was mapping out every detail. The money I could hide, the clothes I could pack without him noticing, and most importantly, how I could get to someone who would help me without tipping him off. For 2 weeks, I played the role of the obedient wife. Daniel seemed to believe it, his suspicion slowly easing. But under the surface, the tension inside me wound tighter and tighter. Then one afternoon, the opportunity came. Daniel got a call from a friend in the next county about some work on his truck. He told me he'd be gone most of the day. The moment his taillights disappeared down the dirt road, my heart kicked into overdrive. I went to the bedroom and pulled the small duffel bag from the back of the closet. Inside, I'd already hidden a few pieces of clothing, a loaf of bread, a water bottle, and most importantly, the envelope of cash I'd been quietly saving from grocery money. It wasn't much, but it was something. My plan was to get to the bus station in town and head to my sister's place 3 states away. She didn't know the details, but she knew enough to tell me. If you ever need to come, don't hesitate. I locked the front door behind me and started walking quickly down the road toward the highway. My hands were sweaty on the bag strap, my ears tuned to every sound. Every car that passed made me flinch, terrified it might be Daniel coming back early. I was halfway to town when I heard the deep growl of an engine behind me. I turned and my heart dropped into my stomach. It wasn't Daniel's truck, it was Sheriff Dawson's patrol car. He slowed to a stop beside me, leaning out the window. "Margaret," he said, looking from my face to the duffel bag in my hand. "You running?" I froze. I didn't know whether to lie or tell him the truth. My throat felt tight. I just need to get away for a while," I finally said. He studied me for a long moment. "Get in. I'll take you." My chest loosened slightly as I climbed into the passenger seat. Maybe this was it, my way out. But as we pulled onto the highway, I glanced in the side mirror. A truck was following us. And it was Daniel's. The sight of that truck in the side mirror made my blood turn cold. Daniel's headlights bore into us like a predator's eyes. I gripped the duffel bag so tightly my knuckles ached. Sheriff Dawson saw it too. "Is that who I think it is?" "Yes," I whispered. He must have turned around. He wasn't supposed to be back until tonight. The sheriff's jaw tightened. "Hold on." He pressed his foot to the gas, the patrol car surging forward. But Daniel matched our speed, swerving behind us, flashing his headlights in an angry, relentless pattern. My stomach churned with fear. "Sheriff, he's not going to stop," I said, my voice shaking. "I know," Dawson replied grimly. "But I've got the law on my side." The problem was, Daniel didn't care about the law. Not when it came to me. He accelerated suddenly, pulling up alongside the patrol car. His window was down, his face twisted in rage. "Pull over, Margaret," he bellowed over the roar of the wind. "Get out of that car." I shook my head, tears welling in my eyes. Sheriff Dawson kept his gaze forward. "Don't look at him. We're almost to town." But Daniel wasn't giving up. He swerved toward us, forcing the sheriff to jerk the wheel to avoid a collision. My breath caught in my throat. "Enough," Dawson muttered, flipping on the siren. The wailing sound split the air. But instead of falling back, Daniel slammed his truck forward, ramming the back of the patrol car. The impact jolted me hard against the seatbelt. "Sheriff." "I've got it," Dawson shouted, wrestling with the wheel to keep us steady. We sped through the outskirts of town, the siren screaming, but Daniel stayed glued to us, like a storm we couldn't outrun. People on the sidewalk stopped and stared as we tore past, the scene playing out like something from a bad dream. Then Dawson made a sharp turn into the alley behind the police station. Daniel tried to follow, but the narrow space forced him to slow down. The sheriff skidded to a stop, jumped out and ran around to my side. "Inside. Now," he ordered, ushering me toward the back door of the station. We had barely crossed the threshold when the crash came. The unmistakable sound of metal slamming against brick. Daniel had driven his truck straight into the corner of the building. The sheriff's deputies rushed out, shouting orders, but Daniel wasn't listening. He stumbled from the truck, his eyes locked on me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. And in his hand was the shotgun. The world narrowed to the sight of that shotgun in Daniel's hands. The street outside the station seemed to hold its breath. Rain dripped from the brim of his cap, sliding down his face, but his eyes were dry, hard and unblinking. "Margaret." His voice cracked the air like a whip. "You think you can hide from me in here?" Sheriff Dawson stepped in front of me, his hand on his holster. "Put it down, Daniel. Right now." Daniel smirked. "What's the plan here, Sheriff? You gonna shoot me in front of half the town?" He took a slow step forward. Two deputies flanked the sheriff, their own weapons raised. The tension was so thick it felt like the air might shatter. My heart hammered in my chest, my breath shallow. "I just want to talk to my wife," Daniel said, his voice eerily calm now. "You're not talking to her while you're armed," Dawson replied. "Drop the gun." Daniel's eyes flicked to me. "Tell them, Margaret. Tell them I'm not the bad guy." I swallowed hard. My voice felt trapped somewhere between my fear and my anger. "You are the bad guy, Daniel. You've been hurting me for years. And you're not taking me back." His jaw tightened. That calm look in his eyes cracked, replaced by something raw and dangerous. You think this is over because you ran to them? His knuckles whitened on the shotgun. For a heartbeat, everything was silent, except for the rain and my pounding pulse. Then Daniel took another step forward. The sheriff's voice was steel now. Last warning, Daniel. Put it down or I will put you down. Daniel's gaze darted between the three armed men. His chest rose and fell faster now. And then he aimed the shotgun. I gasped. The deputies shouted. Everything seemed to happen at once. A deafening crack split the air, the sound echoing off the buildings. I screamed and dropped to the floor, hands over my head. When I looked up, Daniel was sprawled on the wet pavement, the shotgun lying beside him, his shirt blooming red. Sheriff Dawson stood over him, his pistol still raised, his face grim. The world around me blurred. People yelling, sirens growing louder, deputies rushing forward. My ears rang, my body trembling so badly I couldn't stand. Dawson knelt beside me. He's alive, he said firmly, though his eyes were clouded. But you're coming with me. Now. I nodded, too stunned to speak. Minutes later, I was in the back of another patrol car, watching through the rain-smeared glass as they loaded Daniel onto a stretcher. Even then, strapped down and bleeding, he turned his head and found me. And he smiled. It wasn't the smile of a man defeated. It was a promise that this wasn't over. The sound of metal scraping against metal woke me from my sleep. At first, I thought it was just the old heater rattling again. But then I heard its slow, deliberate turns of a lock. My heart seized. The secure room at the shelter didn't even have an outside key. Except for staff and law enforcement. Which meant, whoever was out there wasn't supposed to be. I slipped quietly out of bed, my bare feet cold on the concrete floor. The faint smell of cigarette smoke drifted under the door. The same brand Daniel used to smoke. Then I heard it. His voice. Low. Whispering my name. Margaret, you can't hide forever. The lock gave one final click. Before I could react, the door swung open, and the dim hallway light spilled inside. His shadow filled the frame. Daniel stood there, wearing a stolen security guard's uniform, his eyes wild and unblinking. I screamed, but he lunged forward, clamping a gloved hand over my mouth. His other hand pressed something cold and sharp against my side. You're leaving with me tonight, he growled. One way or another. My mind was racing, my body shaking, when I remembered Ruth's words from weeks ago. If he ever gets this close again, don't fight for your pride. Fight for your life. So instead of pulling away, I leaned in close and bit down hard on his hand. He howled in pain, stumbling back just enough for me to shove him into the wall and run. The hallway was dark, empty, every sound echoing like a gunshot. I tore down the stairs two at a time, my breath ragged, but behind me his footsteps followed. I burst into the lobby, slamming into the front desk. Call 911. I screamed at the night clerk. But when I looked back, Daniel wasn't in the stairwell anymore. He'd vanished. The clerk grabbed the phone, and I stood there trembling, every muscle ready to snap, listening for his return. He never came back that night. But the next morning, the shelter director found something outside the front door. A single white envelope. Inside there was no letter. Just a photograph. It was me. Taken from somewhere across the street. Standing at the lobby desk in my nightgown the moment I'd screamed for help. The message was clear. He'd been closer than I thought. I didn't sleep for the next 3 nights. Every creak of the shelter's old wooden frame sounded like footsteps. Every shadow on the wall looked like Daniel's silhouette. I kept the lights on in my room, my sneakers by the door, ready to run at any second. The police took the photograph, but the officer's tone told me what I already feared. They had no idea where Daniel was. We'll keep an eye out, he said. But I'd heard those words before. They didn't stop my son from dying. On the 4th day I made a decision. I couldn't just wait for Daniel to come again. I needed to disappear. Ruth didn't like it. You're safer here than out there, Maggie. Not if he knows exactly where here is, I said. So we made a plan. I'd move to a safe house 2 towns away. No one except Ruth and the shelter director would know the address. The transfer was set for Friday morning. But Thursday night, everything went wrong. I was packing the last of my clothes when the power cut out. The sudden darkness was so complete I could barely see my own hands. The emergency lights in the hallway flickered, then went black. From somewhere outside, a generator coughed to life, but not the shelter's generator. This one was closer. Then, through the stillness, I heard it. A slow, steady knock on my door. 3 times. I froze, my suitcase halfway zipped. The knocks came again, this time harder. "Margaret," a voice drawled from the other side. "It's me. We've got unfinished business." My stomach turned to ice. And then the smell of gasoline seeped under the door. The stench of gasoline grew thicker by the second, burning my nose and making my eyes water. My hands trembled as I reached for the doorknob, not to open it, but to make sure it was still locked. Cold metal met my fingers. Locked, but for how long? "Daniel, stop this!" I shouted, my voice shaking. "You'll go to prison for the rest of your life." He laughed. Not loud, just enough to send a chill up my spine. "Prison's better than living without you." Then I heard the faint glug of liquid being poured. The sound snaked its way under the door and wrapped around my chest like a vice. I backed away, my mind screaming at me to find another way out. The small window above my bed was my only option. I climbed onto the mattress, yanked at the frame, and it slid open with a painful squeal. But just as I was swinging one leg over, there was a loud whoosh. The hallway outside my door exploded into orange light. He'd lit it. Smoke rolled in fast, black and choking. I coughed, trying to shield my mouth with my sleeve. My eyes stung and panic clawed at my lungs. I forced my other leg through the window and started to lower myself, but the drop was farther than I'd thought. 2 full stories. My grip was slipping on the slick window frame. Then from somewhere below, a voice yelled up at me. "Jump! I've got you!" Through the smoke, I could barely make out a man in a firefighter's helmet. But there was no time to think. The flames were licking the walls inside my room now. I let go. The air whipped past my face for a split second before I hit something solid and strong, the firefighter's arms. My knees buckled as he set me down, coughing hard. But then I saw it. In the chaos, while the firefighters ran toward the shelter, Daniel was standing across the street, watching me. His face half hidden by shadows, a small smile twisting his mouth. And then, without a word, he turned and melted into the darkness. The shelter fire made the local news, but the truth of it, that it was Daniel, never made the headlines. Officially, they called it a possible electrical fault. I knew better. I spent the next week in the safe house Ruth had arranged. No windows at street level, no visitors without clearance, and every door double-locked. Still, I jumped at every noise. But something shifted in me during those long days. I realized I'd been running from Daniel for years, not just physically but in my mind. Every time I replayed his threats, his violence, his manipulation, I was letting him live inside me rent-free. And I decided enough was enough. I started keeping a journal. Not to dwell on what he did, but to document every step I took toward freedom. I called the detective every morning for updates. I attended counseling sessions twice a week. I even enrolled in self-defense classes. Then one morning the call came. They'd found him. Not in our state but 2 counties over. Arrested for trespassing and assault. He was now in custody, facing charges that would keep him locked away for years. I can't describe the relief that washed over me. It wasn't just about safety, it was about finally breathing without fear. Still, the scars are there. You don't survive something like this and walk away untouched. But I've learned that survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about choosing life, every single day. Even when the shadows of the past try to pull you back. So to anyone watching this, hear me clearly. No one has the right to break you, control you, or make you feel small. And if they try, fight back with everything you've got, and never stop running toward freedom. I thought it was over. For the first time in years, I slept through the night without jolting awake from nightmares. I even started planting flowers in the tiny yard of my safe house, bright yellow marigolds that made the place feel alive. But one morning, 3 weeks after Daniel's arrest, I got a letter. No stamp. No return address. Just my name and shaky handwriting on the front. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity, that old dangerous thing, got the better of me. Inside was a single sheet of paper. No greeting. No signature. Just 5 words scrawled in black ink. He's not where you think. My hands went cold. I rushed to the phone and called the detective. His voice was calm, too calm. Margaret, as far as our records show, Daniel is still in county jail. As far as your records show? I snapped. What does that mean? He hesitated. It means we'll double-check. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made my skin prickle. I checked the locks 3 times. At 2 a.m., I finally drifted off and woke to the sound of gravel crunching under footsteps right outside my window. I froze, barely breathing. Then came the slow tap of knuckles on the glass. When I finally forced myself to look, my heart stopped. It wasn't Daniel. It was a woman, pale, thin, with tangled hair and hollow eyes, holding something small and wriggling in her arms. She leaned closer to the glass, her lips forming words I couldn't hear, until she whispered them louder. He sent me. I didn't move. Couldn't move. The woman's breath fogged the glass as she stood there, rocking whatever she held in her arms. I swallowed hard and forced my voice to work. Who are you? Her eyes flicked down at the bundle, then back at me. You need to take her, she said, her voice cracked and thin. He said you'd know what to do. I shook my head. No, I don't know you. And I don't. Please, she pressed, her voice breaking. He's coming. If he sees me here, we're both dead. Before I could think, she pressed the bundle against the glass. I saw a tiny face wrapped in a pink blanket. A baby. No more than a few weeks old. My chest tightened. Why would he send you here? Why would he? He's not in jail, she whispered. Not anymore. He paid someone, they let him out. He found me. And he said if I didn't bring the baby to you, he'd. Her words cut off when a low rumble sounded from the street. Headlights swept across the yard, growing brighter. She jerked her head toward the noise. It's him. My blood ran cold. She thrust the baby toward the window. Take her. Please. I didn't think. I yanked the window open and grabbed the child. The woman turned and sprinted into the darkness, just as a black pickup rolled into view, its engine growling. Through the windshield I saw him. Daniel. Our eyes locked for a fraction of a second before he cut the headlights, plunging the yard into darkness. I clutched the baby to my chest, her tiny warmth trembling against me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might wake her. The black pickup idled at the curb, engine rumbling low. I couldn't see Daniel now, but I felt him. That same heavy presence I'd spent years trying to escape was right there, just beyond the shadows. I backed away from the window, scanning the safe house for a weapon. My eyes landed on the heavy lamp by the couch. It wasn't much, but it was something. Then the truck engine cut off. Silence. The baby stirred, letting out a soft whimper. I pressed her close, whispering, "Sure you're safe," even though I wasn't sure if either of us was. A faint creak echoed from the porch outside. Someone was walking toward the door. I could see the shadow under the crack, long and deliberate. Then a knock. Slow. Heavy. 3 times. I didn't answer. Margaret. His voice slid through the door, calm and cold. Open up. We need to talk. Every muscle in my body tensed. You're not supposed to be here, I said, my voice shaking. I told you before, he murmured. Paper and locks won't stop me. The baby started to cry, soft at first, then louder. Daniel's tone shifted, curious. I see she got to you first. Good. Saves me time. I gripped the lamp tighter. What do you want from me? He chuckled low. You already know. Now open the door before I decide to come in my way. And then, without warning, the doorknob began to turn. The doorknob twisted halfway before I lunged forward and slammed the deadbolt back into place. Margaret. Daniel's voice was still calm, but I could hear the strain underneath. Don't make me break it. You know I will. The baby's cries grew louder, sharper. I bounced her in my arms, whispering frantic shushes, but my own pulse was so loud in my ears I could barely hear myself. I'm calling the police, I shouted, fumbling for the phone on the table. You think they'll get here in time? He asked, a laugh in his voice now. You've always been slow at making decisions, Margaret. That's your problem. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. Yes, I started, but before I could finish, the sound of splintering would crack through the room. He was kicking the door. The operator's voice was in my ear, but I could barely hear her over the thunder of boots slamming against the frame. I grabbed the lamp, positioned myself behind the door, and prayed the hinges would hold long enough for help to arrive. One more kick. The top lock gave way with a sickening crack. The baby screamed in my ear. I could see the wood around the deadbolt starting to splinter. "Margaret!" His voice roared now. "Don't make me take her from you the hard way." The last kick sent the door swinging inward. I raised the lamp high and froze. Because it wasn't Daniel standing in the doorway anymore. It was the woman from before. Only this time, her face was smeared with blood. Her chest was heaving, her wild eyes darting past me into the room as if searching for something. Blood trickled down her temple, but she didn't seem to notice. "Where is she?" the woman gasped, stumbling inside without waiting for permission. I instinctively clutched the baby tighter. "What happened to you? Where's Daniel?" She shook her head quickly. "No time. He's gone for now, but he'll be back. He thinks I'm dead." My mouth went dry. "What do you mean dead?" "He hit me. Hard enough that I didn't move for a while. He thought I was gone, so he left. I woke up and ran here." She was shaking so badly, I wasn't sure she could even stand much longer. I guided her to the couch, still holding the baby. "You need a hospital," I said. She grabbed my wrist with surprising strength. "No. If I go to a hospital, they'll have to report it. He'll know where I am. We need to leave. Tonight." "Leave?" I whispered sharply. "The police are already on their way." The woman's gaze snapped to the window. "No, they're not." I followed her eyes. My stomach dropped. Through the glass I saw flashing red and blue lights pulling away from the end of the street, not toward us but away. It hit me like a punch. Someone had called them off. The woman leaned in, her voice trembling but urgent. "He's got people everywhere. If we don't go now, Margaret, we won't get another chance." And then in the distance I heard it again, the deep growl of a black pickup's engine. The rumble of that engine grew louder, steady, like the ticking of a clock counting down the last moments we had left. The woman shot to her feet, swaying slightly but pulling me toward the back door. "Go. Take the baby." My mind raced, my purse, my phone, the emergency bag I'd packed weeks ago just in case. I grabbed it from under the kitchen table, my hands moving faster than I thought possible. The woman yanked open the back door but froze. Headlights. Not from the front, from the alley behind the safe house. My breath caught. "He's blocking both sides." She shut the door quickly, whispering, "We'll go out the side window through the neighbor's yard." We hurried down the narrow hallway, the baby's cries muffled against my shoulder. The woman shoved open the window in the laundry room. Cool night air rushed in. She climbed out first, stumbling into the damp grass, then reached back for me. I passed her the baby, then swung my legs over the sill. My foot had barely hit the ground when the roar of the pickup cut through the alley, closer now. We crouched low, moving fast across the neighbor's yard. My legs burned, my heart racing so hard it hurt. Halfway across, a voice called out from the darkness. "Where do you think you're going, Maggie?" "Daniel's." The woman froze, clutching the baby tighter. I turned, and there he was, stepping out from behind the neighbor's shed, a metal crowbar glinting in his hand. The moonlight caught the steel in Daniel's hand, and for a moment I thought my knees might give out. He smiled, that slow, chilling smile I'd seen 100 times before. "You didn't think I'd let you walk away again, did you?" The woman backed up, holding the baby against her chest like a shield. I stepped forward instinctively, putting myself between them and him. My voice shook. "You're not touching her. Or me. Ever again." Daniel tilted his head, as if amused. "Maggie, you've always been dramatic. Just give me the baby and I'll let you live." "Over my dead body," I spat. His smile didn't falter. "That can be arranged." He took a step closer, the crowbar hanging loose in his grip. The woman's breathing grew fast and shallow behind me. My mind scrambled for anything, a plan, a weapon, a miracle. Then somewhere in the distance, I heard a faint rustling. At first I thought it was the wind in the trees. But it grew louder, heavier. Footsteps pounding on grass. Daniel's gaze flicked over my shoulder, his smile slipping. A figure burst from the shadows, tall, broad, and running straight toward us. Before Daniel could react, the figure slammed into him, knocking the crowbar from his hand. It skittered across the grass with a dull clang. Daniel roared, grappling with the stranger. "Run!" The stranger shouted at us without looking back. The woman grabbed my arm, and we bolted across the yard, the baby wailing in her arms. But as we reached the fence, a sickening crack split the air, the sound of metal hitting bone. I turned just in time to see Daniel standing over the stranger's limp body, crowbar in hand again, and his eyes locked on me. Daniel's shadow stretched long across the grass, the crowbar dripping with something dark. His breathing was ragged now, the calm mask completely gone. "You run, Maggie," he growled, stepping toward us, "and I'll make it slow when I catch you." The woman yanked me toward the fence. We scrambled up, the old wood creaking beneath our weight. I pushed her up first, shoving her from below until she swung her leg over with the baby in her arms. Daniel's footsteps pounded closer. I hauled myself up, my palms splintering on the rough boards. My foot was just hooking over the top when a hand like a vice clamped around my ankle. "Not this time," he snarled, yanking hard. I screamed, kicking at him with my free foot. My shoe connected with his face. A dull thud followed by a grunt, and his grip loosened just enough for me to swing over and drop to the other side. We landed in the neighbor's driveway, the woman still clutching the baby. My heart hammered against my ribs. We ran toward the street, but headlights suddenly flared to life just ahead of us. Not a black pickup this time, a police cruiser. Relief flooded me so fast I almost cried. I waved frantically, shouting, "Help! Please!" The car rolled toward us, window sliding down. But when I saw the face behind the wheel, my blood turned to ice. It wasn't a cop I knew. It wasn't even someone in uniform. It was one of Daniel's friends, the one I'd seen at our house months ago, carrying an envelope stuffed with cash. He grinned, and the passenger door swung open. The fake cop leaned across the seat, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Get in. We'll take you somewhere safe." The woman shook her head violently, clutching the baby tighter. "We're not going anywhere with you." From behind us came the sound of pounding footsteps. Daniel was closing in. I could feel the ground tremble under his weight. "Either you get in," the man in the car said, "or you deal with him." I glanced over my shoulder. Daniel was less than 20 feet away, crowbar still in hand, his face twisted in a rage I'd never seen before. There was no time to think. I grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her toward the side of the house instead, darting into the narrow gap between the fence and the garage. The cruiser's tires squealed as it tried to reverse and cut us off, but the gap was too tight for the car. We sprinted through the dark passage, breath tearing in and out of our lungs. My legs burned, my throat raw, but adrenaline kept us moving. We burst out into a backyard, only to find another figure waiting there. This one was different. No smirk, no weapon, just a man in a hooded sweatshirt, standing still with his hands raised. "Wait," he hissed. "I'm not with him." "Your sister sent me." I froze, trying to read his face in the shadows. The woman glanced at me, eyes wide, clearly torn between hope and terror. From the alley behind us, Daniel's voice roared, "You can't hide from me, Maggie." The hooded man took a step closer. "You have 10 seconds to decide before he's here. Trust me or die here." And then the sound of Daniel's boots crunching on gravel grew louder. The woman's grip on my arm tightened. "Maggie, we can't trust him. What if he's lying?" I didn't have time to answer. Daniel's shadow was already spilling into the yard behind us. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. The hooded man stepped forward, his voice low but urgent. "Your sister knew you wouldn't believe me. She told me to say." He paused, glancing over his shoulder. "She told me to tell you about the blue locket." My breath caught. Only my sister and I knew about that locket. The one she gave me the night before my wedding, telling me to keep it close because I might need a reminder of who I really was. That was all I needed. "We go with him," I said, grabbing the woman's sleeve. Daniel's roar split the air as we darted after the hooded man. He led us toward the back fence, pulling aside a loose panel just wide enough to squeeze through. One by one, we slipped into another dark yard. We ran through 2 more properties before he stopped beside a battered pickup truck with no plates. "Get in." The woman hesitated, but I shoved her inside and climbed in after. The hooded man jumped into the driver's seat, starting the engine just as Daniel's voice bellowed somewhere behind us. The tires spun in the wet grass, flinging mud. We shot forward, out onto a narrow road. I twisted in my seat just in time to see Daniel burst through the fence we'd just slipped past, crowbar raised. His face was a mask of pure fury. We sped into the night, but the hooded man didn't relax. "They'll be after us in minutes," he said. "We're not safe yet." Before I could ask where we were going, headlights flared in the rearview mirror, and they were gaining on us fast. The image of that smile followed me all the way to the safe room inside the police station. It wasn't the look of a man afraid of prison or death. It was the look of a man who believed, deep in his bones, that he still owned me. Sheriff Dawson brought me a blanket and a cup of coffee I didn't drink. My hands were too busy shaking. "He's under guard at the hospital," the sheriff said. "He won't be able to get near you." I wanted to believe him, but I'd lived with Daniel long enough to know, bars, locks, and guards never meant much to a man who didn't care about consequences. By nightfall, they moved me to a women's shelter 2 counties over. The room was small, with a single bed and a window that looked out over the parking lot. The walls were painted a soft yellow, but I still felt like a ghost in someone else's life. The next morning, the shelter coordinator, a kind woman named Ruth, brought me a bag of clothes and toiletries. "You're safe here," she said, resting a hand on my shoulder. "He doesn't know where you are." I nodded, but I didn't tell her about the nightmares that kept me from sleeping. Daniel's voice in my ear, Daniel's hands dragging me back home, Daniel's promise that it wasn't over. 3 days passed without incident. I started to breathe a little easier. I even called my sister, telling her I was okay and that I'd come to her soon. But on the 4th night, as I was folding the few clothes I had, there was a knock at my door. "Margaret." Ruth's voice called softly. I opened it, and the look on her face made my stomach drop. "What is it?" I asked. She hesitated. "The sheriff just called. Daniel's out of the hospital." My knees went weak. "How?" "He was under guard. They don't know. One of the deputies found his bed empty during rounds. They think someone helped him." My mind spun. Who would help him? Then a horrible realization hit me. His cousin Larry lived just outside town. Larry had always been loyal to Daniel, no matter what he did. Ruth touched my arm. "The sheriff sending a patrol to watch the shelter, but..." Before she could finish, the sound came. A deep, slow rumble from outside. I moved to the window, my breath catching. There, parked under the lone streetlight, was Daniel's truck. The headlights were off, but I could see him sitting behind the wheel, his face just visible in the glow from the dashboard. He wasn't moving. He was just watching. And then, as if he knew I'd seen him, he raised his hand and pointed straight at me. My breath caught in my throat. That single gesture, his finger aimed at me like a gun, froze me to the spot. It was the same silent warning I'd seen before every beating, every violent outburst. Ruth must have seen the look on my face because she grabbed the phone and dialed the sheriff instantly. "He's here," she said into the receiver. "He's outside right now." The dispatcher's voice crackled through the line. "Stay inside. Officers are en route." But I knew better. By the time they got here, Daniel could already be through the door. I backed away from the window, my pulse hammering in my ears. Ruth locked the door and pulled the curtain shut. But the sound of an engine starting made both of us freeze. Daniel's truck lurched forward, its tires crunching over the gravel. He drove slow, deliberately, circling the parking lot like a wolf testing the edges of a fence. Then, without warning, the truck stopped. The door opened. Daniel stepped out. Even from here, I could see the bandages on his side from the gunshot, and the way he moved, stiff but determined. In his right hand, he carried something dark and heavy. I didn't have to guess what it was. "Margaret." His voice tore through the night. "You think you can hide in here forever?" Ruth grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the back hallway. "We need to get you into the secure room." We had barely made it halfway when the sound of glass shattering rang out from the lobby. I turned just in time to see the front window explode inward. Daniel was climbing through, his boots crunching over the shards. Ruth shoved me forward. "Go." My legs carried me down the hall as adrenaline roared through me. I could hear Daniel's footsteps behind us, faster now, the sound of his breathing growing closer. We reached the heavy metal door to the secure room, and Ruth fumbled with the key. The footsteps were almost on us. My vision tunneled, my chest aching with panic. Finally, the lock clicked. Ruth pushed me inside and slammed the door shut just as Daniel's shadow fell across the hallway. For a moment, there was silence. Then the pounding began, heavy, furious blows against the metal that shook the frame. "You can't stay in there forever, Margaret," he shouted. "When you come out, you're mine." I pressed my back against the wall, my hands over my ears. Somewhere in the distance, faint but growing louder, I heard sirens. The pounding stopped. I held my breath, straining to hear. Then Ruth whispered, "He's gone." But I knew better. Men like Daniel didn't just disappear. They waited. They planned. They came back. And as much as I wanted to believe this was the end, deep down I knew this was only a pause. That was the moment I decided. If I ever wanted to live free, I'd have to stop running. The next time I saw Daniel, it wouldn't be me trapped in a locked room. It would be him. Before I go, let me say this. If you've been watching till now, thank you. My name is Margaret. I'm speaking to you from the southern part of the USA. And I'm 63 years old. I told you my story because somewhere out there, another woman might be living through the same nightmare I survived. Please, if you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss more real-life stories like this. And before we continue, I'd love to know, from which part of the country or the world are you watching? Drop it in the comments below. Now, here's the truth I learned the hardest way. Silence is the abuser's greatest weapon. The more you hide your pain, the more they control you. When you speak out, you take back your power, even if your voice shakes. I stayed quiet too long, thinking I could survive it, thinking I could change him. I couldn't. And neither can you. But you can choose yourself. You can choose freedom. If you're in a dangerous situation, please don't wait for the right time. There is no perfect moment to escape, but there is a moment when you decide you've had enough. That moment can save your life.